the meeting.
Oh. Never
We'll
mind.
call the meeting to order of the February 9th, 2021 Park District meeting. Do we have a motion to approve the minutes from the previous meeting?
Move to approve as presented.
Second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. Second, approval of January bills.
Move to approve as presented.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there discussion for the bills? No discussion. Dave, pull the board.
Oh, Commissioner, I forgot about this. Commissioner, let me work on this now. Commissioner Rosted,
Yes.
Commissioner Dawson.
She's not on yet.
Oh, Commissioner Morgan,
She's still muted.
Commissioner Deutsch,
Aye.
and Commissioner Griggs.
Aye. Motion carries. Do we have anyone in the audience to recognize tonight? No?
Nope.
Okay, we'll move right on to, oh, I missed the order of agenda. Are there any changes to the agenda tonight, Dave?
No changes, Madam President.
Move to approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded. We just vote en masse for this, right?
Yep.
All
As long
in
as
favor?
money's not involved.
Right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Everything feels odd from my living or my dining room. Okay, director's report, Dave.
Commissioners, I did have a chance to talk with you this afternoon and discuss the potential changes to our park officer. And in meeting with the new police chief last week and then follow-up conversations today, it looks like he would rather have all his officers under his direction, which I think is a good way to approach working with the new chief and his administration. So I guess I'd open that up if anybody had any questions regarding that. Josh is currently on paternity leave for 6 weeks. The urgency is that they'll be shifting to an overlapping shift system coming up in March, and we need to notify Josh, which I did yesterday, and so he can get his place in the draft per his seniority to select his shifts. So as I talked with Commissioner Deutsch, it was kind of a wham bam urgency type thing, and I think he's assured me that there's going to be no drop off for security and for our parks and service from the police department. So
I did reach out to Dean Ambiel, who kind of Josh goes to for the Park District side. Dean's going to reach out to him, and so we have a smooth transition of what he's actually taken care of, making sure that we get everything covered as well.
thanks, Kevin.
I was going to say, he was kind of a great resource officer just for people in our parks to not just keeping order and keeping us safe, but really kind of educating the public and had some nice touches with our citizens. So that will be missed.
Yeah, and I think if, depending on what shift he secures, I think he'll still have some of that ability to work with parks, since that is his specialty, and kind of help train in other officers and, the school resource officers. So during their slower times in the summer.
Okay.
And then just the other item, as we've mentioned, is, Carolyn has been working with the Legends Group about possibly purchasing the operation down at Big Herbs at Rose Creek. And we did meet with Kelly last week, and seems like everything is in order. We're going to meet with the Legends Group this week, Carolyn, Brock, and I, to kind of vet out the situation, check their finances, and we appreciate Kelly reaching out to us and finding I think a very good operator. They've got a lot of experience, so we look forward to that and possibilities down at Rose Creek. So those are the two items I had. Does any commissioners have any questions or items?
So getting back to the police situation, I'll take first dibs on the motorcycle.
Yeah. We're already working on that one too with the director, so we can all get our turn. But you got to have your motorcycle endorsement. So it's not a mini bike.
Well, I'd like to see it. I was going to do it last summer, but the COVID thing, I just kind of, I'll wait. So this spring, I got it on my calendar. I want to see it in action.
It's quick. It's quick. So that's all I have, commissioners.
Okay. Any other questions for Dave? All right, we'll move on to the foundation director's report. Brian?
Thank you, Madam President. Just a few items to talk about. First of all, of course, Giving Hearts Day is this week. And we have so far received about $15,000 in donations, which coupled with the Shields match means we've raised 30 grand so far. Before the bell rings, we've already got $30,000 in the bank. So just a reminder for all of you to give early and give often. Our goal is a lofty one. We want to raise the full $250,000 that Shields is matching, so $500,000 overall. We'll see if we're going to get there. We've been working with 8 different organizations, and I think you're all familiar with the eight organizations, but I'll go through them real quick. Fargo Youth Baseball, Fargo Youth Hockey, Tri-City United Soccer Club, Red River Valley Lacrosse Association, Red River Infinity Volleyball, FM Athletics, Upward Sports, and ND Pro Basketball. And have been having regular meetings with them and sharing information with them, made videos that each of them can use to market themselves individually along with the sports complex marketing materials in a collective sort of way. So they, we hope, are working with their 13,000 member families to try and make this a huge success. So anything you can do to publicize Giving Hearts Day in the sports complex would be super.
I shared it on my Facebook page today, Brian. Video of Irv Vinegar talking about Giving Hearts Day.
Irv is on fire over Giving Hearts Day and the sports complex, and man, he is a one-man show by far. So I think that might be it. Valley Senior Services, of course, is doing Giving Hearts Day as well. We have raised about $45,000 to date, which includes $30,000 from Artie Offit's Caters Taters, which they agreed to allow us to use for Giving Hearts Day. So we're both off to a pretty good start and excited about what the day will bring. Okay. Foundation board meets next Tuesday.
Yep, bye-bye.
And that's kind of what I have to report. Anybody have any questions for me?
This isn't your first time with Giving Hearts for Brian, so do you assume that the big day is the 11th, or do people kind of give evenly throughout?
The big day by far is on the 11th. You know, they have allowed people to give in advance, but they haven't really promoted it. This year they're promoting it more. But I'm sure on the day of, we're going to see, I don't know, probably 500 donations for Valley Senior Services, and we're hoping 5,000 for the foundation. You know, so it'll, by far, Thursday is going to be exciting, and every time a donation is made, a email is sent out to us alerting us of the name of the donor, the amount of the donation, and how we can get in contact with them. So it's a long, exciting day.
Yeah, I guess. Any questions for Brian? All right, next up is board to consider approval of recommendation from the Park District Foundation on our grant match program applications. Brian.
So this information was sent out in your packet. I can spend as much time going over this as you want me to. As it said in the email or in the memo in the packet, there were 5 organizations that applied for grants. Some of them are frequent flyers you'll be familiar with. Fargo Fast Pitch, Fargo Public Library, FM Trail Builders, Fargo Youth Baseball, and Fargo Post 400. Each of them are applying for, different things. And I guess I'm going to ask you commissioners if you want me to go through each of the requests. How would you like me to handle it?
I've been through them a couple of times, so I'm comfortable with where we're at right now. Does anyone have any questions specifically regarding the grant applications?
No, I just wanted to give you kudos, Brian, again, say, well, I mean, actually, I know Terry originally came up with this idea, it got legs from the board and passed on to you guys, and you've done such a great job with it. But, we used to have a system, a public entity system where people would want something and they would sit around and wait for the time and day when the public entity finally gave it to them, and there wasn't a great partnership relationship there. And I just think it's great how we're doing these smaller grants, and they're big in some ways but small in others, and it's a doable amount of money for those organizations to go out and get theirs, and it brings their skin to the game, and it just makes it that much more special to them when they go forward with it and finish it, because it wasn't given to them. It wasn't something they waited around for. It's as much theirs as it is ours. And
sure.
So I just think it's great. Appreciate all your hard work on it.
Brian, this is Dawn. I remember one time you're saying that, as you said, frequent flyers, whether that's something you're comfortable with, or whether you, because of your previous comment, were interested in expanding the possibility to other groups.
Good question, and maybe the term frequent flyer was a bit less reverent than it should have been. There's certainly fine organizations that have applied. They just happen to have lots of stuff that they're working on. The foundation board did talk about this at our last meeting, and you'll note if you add up the 5 applicants that we're recommending that were just under $50,000. Our budget for the year is $100,000. So the foundation board felt that because we're only spending about half of the amount of money that we have budgeted, that we're safe. But if we get to the point where there are enough applicants that we go over, that $50,000 level, then we're going to have to start picking and choosing. And certainly the nod is going to generally go to applicants that are first timers. In this round, we have the FM Trail Builders. That's a first time applicant. The other 4 have all applied for funds and received grants in the past. So the foundation board is kind of aware, of the number of times people have come forth. We've put together a little spreadsheet that shows that, and as long as the funds are available, I guess we're of the opinion that it makes sense to continue awarding applicants subject to funding availability. So that's kind of where we're at with it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I think one thing too, it's, we're still kind of in the infancy of granting funds from the foundation. And I think this round is the first time where we had a lot more interest, and which was really exciting to see, even if it is from people that we've awarded to before. We are building. It's building some momentum and building excitement. And I think that's just part of the maturity as we go along with this foundation. So it's exciting.
Yeah, I just like to also say that I'm happy to see that FM Trail Builders applied, because they certainly deserve the funds.
Mm-hmm. They're a good partner.
Yeah, they do great work.
Do we have any more questions for Brian?
I don't have a question, but I just want to reiterate what Joe said on the record. I think this program is working exactly like we envisioned it when we first started it, and it's great to see partnering with our user base to both complement and grow Park District facilities, programs, all of that. So good stuff.
It is good. So do we want to just approve the recommendation from the foundation, or do we want to go each one individually?
I think I put a sample motion at the bottom of the memo, which allows you to do them all at once.
Okay.
So
Do we
I'll
have-
move that we approve the Fargo District Foundation Board recommendation to provide matching grant funds in the amount of $3,000 to the Fargo Fast Pitch Association, $1,930 to the Fargo Public Library, $15,000 FM Trail Builders, $14,233.36 to the Fargo Youth Baseball, and $15,000 to Post 400 Legion Baseball.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion
Second.
and a second. Is there a discussion? Okay, Dave, pull the board.
Commissioner Rosted,
Yes.
Commissioner Dawson, if she's online, Commissioner Morgan,
Aye.
Commissioner Deutsch,
Aye.
Commissioner Griggs.
Aye. Motion carries. All right, next up, board to consider for approval consent agenda for park meetings. Dave Leaker. Park board
Commissioner,
meetings.
yeah, Commissioners, it's been requested that we create a consent agenda. Which would be a time-saving feature of, some of our longer board meetings. And initially, we would just have 3 items on there for the consent agenda. It would include the meeting minutes, approval of the bills, and then order of agenda. Depending on future items we could add to the consent agenda that, really don't require a lot of discussion and are more of housekeeping that we could add to the consent agenda. And in talking with Commissioner Morgan, who's, had experience with a lot of these consent agendas, at any time an item could be pulled off and put on the regular agenda. So I guess if no other further questions, we would ask that beginning at our next board meeting, that we'd add a consent agenda to our board meetings. And there's a sample motion there if anybody has any other questions.
So give me an example of something that ends up on the consent agenda.
Oh, I don't know. It could be as simple as easy as a piece of equipment that doesn't need a lot of it's been budgeted and doesn't require a lot of discussion, where we might just put that on the consent agenda. Or, yeah, I mean, that's the only thing I can think of at this time. And then the 3 items that we currently have.
And items can always be pulled off.
Yep.
If someone comes in and says, I want to discuss one of the items that's been put into the consent agenda, it can be pulled out.
Sure. Okay.
So,
Yeah, I
It
just
doesn't
wanted
tire.
to mention that many times it seems like we kind of get out in the weeds with some of the more detailed questions that may be of certain interest to some of the commissioners, but really don't affect the decision that's being made. So that's one of the reasons I like a consent agenda, is unless somebody has some real specific concerns about an issue, there's no purpose in the commission listening to, details that really are in another department, so to speak, under the directors.
any further questions for Dave? And we need a motion to approve this new procedure, new format.
I'd like to make a motion to approve adding a consent agenda to the agenda for the Fargo Park Board meetings.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? Okay, Dave, pull the board.
Commissioner Rosted,
Yes.
Commissioner Dawson,
Aye.
Commissioner Morgan,
Aye.
Commissioner Deutsch,
Aye.
Commissioner Griggs.
Aye, motion carries. All right, number 9, board to consider for approval increasing the transfer amount to Courts Plus Community Fitness for 2020 year end. Carolyn Boutain, presenter.
Commissioners, in your packet, we have the memo and supporting information that was presented at the Facilities Committee meeting. As we all know, COVID was a challenge for many of our departments this year. And in the past, there's always been a $200,000 transfer to cover some of the improvements that were made in 2013 with Courts Plus. And this year, putting together the numbers early in November, staff talked about presenting something in January to kind of talk about what that transfer might be for 2020. When we met with facilities, the business office had put together their preliminary numbers, and the net change was at $365,603.22. Since that time, it has adjusted a little bit with a few more receipts and expenses that have come through. But this amount does not include the $200,000 transfer. And so again, wanted to have that discussion to talk about whether we would make Courts Plus whole and through the audit process come up with a transfer number. And so thus the staff is recommending that the board increase the transfer to Courts Plus for the 2020 year end as determined by the audit process. And so you would have again that opportunity to look at the number, make sure that you understand how it was arrived at, and then we would be able to make it whole however the board decides that they would like to do that. If you have additional questions, Kelly can talk to you about some of the expenses and revenues that we had this year. Also, we have Luke and Brock on the line to talk about some of the accounting processes if you have any questions regarding that.
So tonight we need to discuss whether we don't pick a number tonight. We wait until the audit process is complete, and then we come back and determine how we're going to transfer funds, or if we're going to transfer funds. Is that what you're looking for?
I think the staff is looking for a confidence that you would be okay preferring to cover it with any net change from the park district. Another option would be to advance the money to Courts Plus and have them pay it back at a later time. At this point, we don't feel we feel that the park district can cover this shortfall, and that this is kind of a one-off, again, more associated with COVID, and not that we want to set a standard at this meeting, but we do want to in the future talk about the expectations for Courts Plus and how that transfer would be made in the future. But again, the standard in the past has been 200,000. We could keep it as that, and then basically expect Courts Plus to pay back the difference at some point, or we can just cover it for 2020. And again, the business office has assured me that the park district has got the funds to be able to do that for this 2020, but we don't want to make that the standard necessarily at this time.
Okay.
I'm not sure who would answer this question. Maybe it would be Brock, but this is Vicky. Is it important that we have an exact number, or do we does our motion or what we pass have to have a not to exceed a certain dollar amount, or is the sample motion here suffice for what we need, knowing that it's going to be about 365,000?
Yeah, that's a great question, commissioners. It really becomes about your comfort level. If you want a not to exceed number, certainly as we close out the books and prepare for the audit, we will have an exact dollar figure, but when we were preparing for facilities, that which had cleared at that point was that 365, 603.22. I'm certainly comfortable procedurally that if if you're basically saying increase the transfer just as the sample motion says, but I think you've got to decide if you're comfortable knowing that that's not carte blanche and it's 500,000 without us coming back to you. It really is the expectation that it's in that 365 range, and it's, you know, we're talking about a few $1,000s on either side of that when we close the books. So we can deal with it either way in the business office if you're comfortable with a more vague motion. But if you'd want to put a not to exceed, I believe Luke is on, you know, we could increase that 365 to maybe 375, knowing that it's probably going to be less than that if that makes you more comfortable.
That's the road I would be inclined to take, is put just kind of a not to exceed number.
So that being said, Luke, with the most recent collections and preparing to close the books, is there a number that we are comfortable with a not to exceed?
Yeah, we've had a couple of bills that have come in, and so as of right now, I just checked today, and we're sitting closer to 375, but we do still have some adjustments to make here before the audit time. So I'd be comfortable with the 375 number and not to exceed that.
Well, and would it be fair to say if we were short $3,000, we could always add that to it later and have the board approve that difference later? Does that make sense?
Yeah, certainly if it were above that, we could bring it back to you and zero it out, or we could just carry it as a deficit with Courts Plus. But I think Luke and I are of the same mind that we'd like to see these budgets zero out each year and make sure that we have a zero-based budgeting as we start. So, but yes, you could come back at a later time and increase it if need be.
I'm just wondering whether it's necessary to go through the process at all. I mean, unless something extraordinary happens, it doesn't seem to me that it would be necessary to have the cap. And I think that if something extraordinary did happen, it would be brought to the board anyway.
Makes sense.
Mm-hmm. I agree with Don.
So you're saying, Don, we don't need a cap?
I don't think so. I mean, unless there's any kind, if there's history of there being a problem, but it doesn't sound to me like there's been a great variation. As not knowing, of course, not having been on the board that long, but it seems to me that if there's not a problem, there's no reason to, you know, add more to the matter. As long as it could always be brought to the board anyway.
I think you make a good point, Don, and the only thing I'd say back is the expectation would be is that once the numbers are kind of, the dust is settled and we know exactly what it was, I would hope that that we would get that information back to, that information would come back to the board, what the exact number turned out to be, so we know.
Yeah, sounds good.
And just a reminder, again, by the way that this is accounted for in the audit, it has its own page and it's very clearly defined as to
Right.
what that would be in that transfer line.
That's right.
Okay, is there more discussion?
No, I'm supporting of what's all just been recently said.
Okay, do we have a motion?
I'll move that we provide the necessary funding to make up the deficit, estimated to be in the upper 300,000 amount.
Is there a second?
Does that work, or do you want me to read the one that's there?
Either way works for us. It's what you're comfortable with as a board, having specific information.
I'm going to move to allow the staff to increase the transfer amount to Courts Plus Community Fitness for 2020 year end as determined by the audit process. That's a cleaner motion than what I made.
Second, cleaner second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there more discussion? Dave, pull the board.
Commissioner Rosted,
Yes.
Commissioner Dawson,
Aye.
Commissioner Morgan,
Aye.
Commissioner Deutsch,
Aye.
Commissioner Griggs.
Aye, motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. And
Thank you.
hopefully it's a better year in 2021.
Oh, it will be.
Okay, board to consider for approval and award the following bids. Dave Beats, presenter.
Thank you, Madam President. Good evening, Commissioners. In your packets is information on several projects that we bid recently. The first one is the Lindenwood Road Improvement Project. This is, if you remember, a new portion of the road we want to construct in Lindenwood Park. I think everybody's familiar with what we've been doing. We've been talking about it for quite a while. So in your information is a memo or a letter of recommendation from our engineering firm, bid tab that shows the results of the bid, and also the engineer's estimate, as well as a site plan. Funding for this project we've set aside over the last several years in our asphalt and concrete. So we're prepared to expense these dollars if given the permission to move ahead. What staff is recommending is that we award the bid to KPH in the amount of $1,218,621.60. They were the low bidder out of 6 different bidders, so we did have a lot of interest in this project. And I think that's the bulk of the information that you have. I'd be happy to try and field any questions you might have of this.
Well, it's nice to have a few bids to look at and compare. That was helpful. And when do you expect the process to begin?
You know, as soon as we can drop contracts and get going, there is some tree mitigation work that we're going to work through that we'd like to do while the ground is still frozen. So assuming we get permission tonight, we'll engage with our engineers again in the morning. And then we would drop contracts and hopefully, you know, some of the work would start yet this month. The bulk of it would really take place not until May, you know, about the first part of May, depending on when the spring thaw hits.
Yeah,
So-
I agree with Stacy that it's nice that we have a number of bids, and it helps us know that we're getting a fair price and reputable businesses who are interested in doing our work for us.
I guess.
I'm just interested in
maybe-
hearing who the, oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Don.
All right, I'm just interested in knowing who the contractor is. I heard the letters, but are they from this area or are they from outside the area?
They're from the area. It's Kindred Plumbing and Heating is the name of the business. They've got into this type of construction several years ago. So although the Park District hasn't done a project with them as of yet, the city has done many projects with them, and also our engineering team is very familiar with them. So they are local. They have just on the very south edge of Fargo is where they're headquartered out of for this area.
Thank you.
Yeah.
The only thing I was going to say, this is a significant change to one of our marquee parks, and maybe you've already got this in the plans, but do we have a marketing plan, and do we have some communication to go out so that, you know, people can't come back and say, what? You guys did what? I didn't have a chance. I think we need to make sure the community knows what we're up to before they start seeing trees getting cut down and some of those things.
We have, you know, we've done a lot of work. The marketing team has been excellent to work with. They've helped me put together communication plans. In fact, tonight we're going to release a blog if this project goes ahead, and will be out on social media. There was a news report when I came the first time just to ask permission to bid this project. We did field, you know, a handful of calls at that time. There was nobody that was against this at that time. Just some more information was needed. We also did a mailing to a 300-foot radius around the park border itself for those residents. That's something that we've taken from the city of Fargo as well. They use that quite often. to do notifications of any sort of work that takes place in significant work that takes place in the city. So we're ready, Jerry. The answer is, there's scheduled times that the marketing team has put together where we'll put this out on social media. Once we do start construction, there'll be regular updates that'll be applied to our website. So we think we've done a good job. Certainly, we're going to have people come after the fact and say just what you said. And we'll try our best to deal with those as they come up. But from my standpoint, I'm very appreciative that the work that's gone into this, and I do feel that we've done a pretty good job of trying to plan to get this out as we can.
Thank you, Dave.
Dave, do you know how many houses that 300-foot amount equals?
Yeah, we sent out, I believe it was 57 or 58 letters, Vicki. So that there again, that just went to the adjacent neighbors right to Lindenwood Park itself.
So I'm guessing I must be just further than that. I'm not sure. Seems like I would be close enough, but maybe not. And that's fine. I was just curious the magic number. And then I am curious, how did we decide on 300 feet? I mean, that's the number I think we've used for a long time, and I'm just curious if that's a city ordinance, if we just pick that number, or how we decide.
It is not a city ordinance, at least to my knowledge. That is information I got from our partners at the city. I reached out to planning, the planning department, and spoke with Mark Williams, and he was the one that said this is their standard notification. I don't believe it's indoctrinated into any sort of policy. I think it's just kind of their standard process. And so then I thought, well, if that's what they're using, that's what we can use. And, Dave Leaker and I did discuss this as we thought, well, okay, if we don't, have that, then what is our deal? Do we do 500 feet or do we do, a mile, and so we just kind of landed on that. I know it's not an exact science, but we just kind of replicated with what the city had done.
Okay. I was just kind of curious I don't have any problems with that magic number. I just didn't know if there was some history behind it or how we decided on that 100 yards. Or if we ever even look at it and say, well, wait a second, there's 4 more houses here that we should probably include or anything like that.
And we do, as I'm drawing that 300-foot, radius around. Certainly, if we're, even touching a property or if there's any question, we just include it.
Sounds good. Thanks, Dave.
Yep.
Okay. Any more discussion or questions? Do we have a motion?
I'll move that we approve the KPH bid for, the numbers are too little there, 1.2 whatever. I make a motion to approve and award KPH Inc. the bid for the Lindenwood Road Improvement Project there. That's better.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Dave, poll the board.
Commissioner Rosted.
Yes.
Commissioner Dawson.
Aye.
Commissioner Morgan.
Aye.
Commissioner Deutsch.
Aye.
Commissioner Griggs.
Aye, motion carries. Next up, Brunsdale parking lot.
All right, thank you, commissioners. This project is on the north end of Brunsdale Park. Brunsdale Park has become more active over the last several years. There's been an increase in the amount of baseball usage there. We've certainly seen an explosion in the amount of pickleball players in the community. So we feel that we need to expand this parking lot, and it includes more than just an expansion. We would overlay the existing parking lot, but we would also advocate to add an additional 47 stalls here, as well as line and mark the parking lot and add in some handicap spaces. In your packet, again, is a letter of recommendation from our engineering firm, a bid tabulation, and also the engineer's estimate along with the site plan we just saw. This was heard at the facility committee meeting and was recommended to bring to the full board. What staff is looking for is that we award this project to Northern Improvement Company in the amount of $131,274.25. I'd be happy to try and answer any questions you may have.
No questions for me, Dave.
No questions for me. Another good four bids are good numbers. A little bit more difference, so that helps.
Yeah, this one was actually decided by less than $150, so we know they sharpen their pencils.
Yep, I appreciate that part too.
All right. Any questions for Dave? All right, do we have a motion?
Thank you for calling Fargo Center for Dermatology.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Dave, pull the board.
Commissioner Rosted,
Yes.
Commissioner Dawson,
Aye.
Commissioner Morgan,
Aye.
Commissioner Deutsch,
Aye.
Commissioner Griggs.
Aye, motion carries. And I apologize for the noise I can't shut off. All right, next up, Nicholson Lighting Project.
All right, thank you, commissioners. This is the last one I have for your consideration tonight. This is a project we'd like to do over at Nicholson Park. That's turned into a very nice softball complex once again. I believe it was a nice complex before, then we had some disruption with the city levy project, and that's actually where funds for this project are coming from. We have some residual funds left over from the city putting a levy through that complex years ago. What we'd like to do here is, if you're familiar with this, we've got 6 existing wooden poles, old wooden light poles, that are along this field here and along Oak Street. They really don't do us justice for how nice this complex is evolving into after the levee project. So what we'd like to do is remove those existing wooden poles and then put up 6 new poles. And when I say new, the poles we'd like to put up are utilized from the Anderson Westland that we sold to the Epic group. So we're reusing the light poles, but we would outfit the new poles, obviously with new wire underground, and then secondly with new light hangers and new light fixtures. So anyway, we had a bid process again for this project. We got 5 bids, so again, a very good bidding climate. So you've got the engineer's estimate, you've also got the bid tab, and as well as the site plan, which we saw there. What staff is recommending is that we would award this project to the Strata Corporation in the amount of $88,650. I'd be happy to try and answer any questions you might have.
I don't have any questions, but I just want to applaud you for recycling the poles and reusing those lights, because I think that's fantastic.
Yeah,
So not knowing what the lights look like, can you tell me, are they fancy lights or decorative or?
They are not. They're pretty much the standard athletic sport field lighting that you would see at many of our other athletic complexes. So I guess I wouldn't call them decorative. I would, you know, I guess that's the best way to describe it, is that they're just kind of our standard, you know, athletic field lighting.
Functional.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any more questions for Dave? Do we have a motion?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
The motion is to approve and award Strata Corporation the bid for the Nicholson Lighting Project. Dave, pull the board.
Commissioner Rosted,
Yes.
Commissioner Dawson,
Aye.
Commissioner Morgan,
Aye.
Commissioner Deutsch,
Aye.
Commissioner Griggs.
Aye, motion carries.
Thank you, commissioners.
Good job, Dave.
Thanks, Dave.
All right. Do we have any more business to come before the board tonight? Do we
I
have a
don't have
motion?
any business, but I have one question. I'm wondering why the Thoroldson signs on the fence are covered up. And my guess is so that the little things they poke in the fence to make the Thoroldson sign along the fences doesn't get messed up during the winter, but that's just a guess.
You got that, Dave? You want me to take it?
Yeah, you're right, Commissioner Dawson. That is what we do. Those are called put-in cups. And they are, once it gets a little bit colder, for whatever reason, they're more susceptible to the wind. So that's a strategy we employed a couple of years ago, and it doesn't always work, but it helps save us a lot of time in the spring from putting them all back in.
They're called put-in cups?
Yep, I think that's a trademarked brand name. So
Sure.
yes, that's the brand name, I believe.
And we put those in at some point.
We did. Yep.
Okay. Yeah, they're super cool. I think they're great. I kind of figured that's what it was, but when I turned the corner the other day, I thought, I wonder what these green things are doing here. Thank you.
Okay, any more business, or do we have a motion to adjourn?
I'll move to adjourn if there's no other business.
All right. Meeting adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Thank
Yep,
you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Stay warm.
Take care.